reasons that people kind of put out there. I view exploration as a challenge, and so trying to continue to feed that challenge means doing new and exciting things, whether it's climbing Kilimanjaro, it's something you haven't done before, whether it's any manner of kind of expedition that you may go on. If it's a new experience for you, it's exploring. As astronauts, and we kind of face a different role where we're exploring for everybody else, because we're not in a situation, at least right now, hopefully we will be someday, where everybody can participate as fully in that exploration dream. And after finishing high school, I attended Washington University in St. Louis, where I studied both mechanical engineering and physics. I had an ROTC scholarship from the Air Force. After completing at Washington University, it was a kind of a drawdown period in the military, and so they didn't need me to come on active duty right away in the Air Force. I applied for several schools when I considered where I would go to graduate school. First, I needed to have an option to actually go to graduate school, and the Air Force gave me that opportunity, at least from a time perspective. Ended up choosing Southern California, primarily because the advisor there contacted me and said, hey, I'm a new faculty member, I'd like to bring you into my research group, and I've got these projects for you. And he had some really hands-on projects to start me off on. So he wanted me to build lab equipment kind of right out of the chute, and that was something I was interested in. After finishing my time at Caltech, I needed to come on active duty and was assigned to Eglin Air Force Base and worked in the research lab. And I got to do a little bit of flight tests and a little bit of kind of engineering, project management, program management, if you will. Air Force Test Pilot School actually has both engineers and test pilots that go through it, and I went through the engineers curriculum. So I'm not a pilot, I'm a flight test engineer, and so we always joke that the pilots didn't really want to go to all the meetings and do all the paperwork associated with flight testing. Interestingly enough, in the Air Force, there's actually a duty code for astronaut, and I put the duty identifier for astronaut right on there, and they said, that's not allowed. You can't just write astronaut as the first job that you want in the Air Force. You got to build up to that sort of a thing. But it was exposed in graduate school to some other folks that were actually applying to be astronauts as graduate students, and which was a surprise to me. All of my Air Force peers, I had been told you can't put down that duty code on your application to be come into active duty. You have to wait until your opportunity comes to be an astronaut. But my classmates in graduate school were applying to go straight from graduate school off to be astronauts. And interestingly enough, one of them was actually selected in the 98 class, Garrett Reisman. He and I went to graduate school together. So then I knew, as soon as I got in the Air Force, I was definitely going to apply, because Garrett had gotten selected as a graduate student after those few folks had told me I couldn't do that as an Air Force guy. And so I followed that dream right after coming on active duty and started applying, and with the rest of my test pilot school classmates, we all applied to be astronauts the next time around, and luckily enough, I was selected. We repeatedly have opportunity to kind of participate in the development and design of the new vehicles, and this was true even when we were still flying the space shuttle. Every mission had aspects that still had some flexibility from a crew perspective, and we would make inputs and make changes. And both of my missions, as you pointed out, were on Endeavour. So that's the ship that I did take into space. But as a Cape Crusader, one of those guys who worked in Florida, I was in all of the space shuttles, Columbia, all the operational ones after that. So I was exposed to all of them, and they absolutely were different. The workforce down at KSC really had an appreciation for every vehicle was unique, every vehicle was special, and we got kind of that special experience as Cape Crusaders.